Okay, so hello everyone. I wanted to make this video to just teach you guys about linear equations. I know that I've done many videos on this, but I literally just want to do linear equations just in one video and just to go over how they work, what they are, etc. So, a linear equation, first of all, is of the form y equals mx plus b, right? So m is the slope and b is the y-intercept, right? I literally, so honestly, I just want to do solving linear equations in this video. I am not going to go over graphing or even, the standard form. I just want to do graphing, or I'm sorry, solving linear equations. I will go over distributive property and as well as associative property. So basically, let's see, so distributive property is basically if you have A times B plus or minus C, this will give you A times B plus or minus A times C, okay? So I'm going to first go very simple. I'm going to try to do very simple linear equations. So for example, 2 times x equals 10, okay? So what do we do to get x by itself, right? We need to get x on its own. We want to get it in terms of x equals, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, because it's being multiplied, so you have 2 times x equals 10, right? So to get rid of that 2, you need to divide by 2. So then this gives you x equals 5, right? Okay, and then let's see, so then we have that one, and then we also have what about if it's negative? So negative 2x equals 10. Remember that if you divide by a negative, so a positive over a negative is equal to negative, right? So if you divide by a negative here, then you end up with negative 5 right here. So dividing both sides by negative 2, we have 10 over negative 2, and that's negative 5. So x equals negative 5, right? What if we end up with negative 2x equals negative 10, right? So if we divide both sides by negative 2, the negatives cancel out, right? And we're left with x equals 10 over 2, which is 5, right? So that's just to show you guys the differences between what is it called? Like between, positives and negatives. So, another thing that I wanted to show you guys is how to solve an equation in just one-step form. So, for example, if I have x minus 1 equals 3, how do I solve that for x, right? I'm going to go ahead and add 1 to both sides, right? So I get x equals 4, right? And then, what about if I have, let's say if I have negative x minus 2 equals 5. I have a negative x, right? So, if you so there's two ways you can do this one. If you remember this formula here, a plus b over c, this is a over c plus b over c. So if we divide this by -1, we have to, whatever we do to the left, we always do to the right. That's one thing in algebra. Whatever you do to the left side, you have to do to the right side. Okay, so you have to do it on both sides. This will give you negative x over -1 minus 2 over -1, which is equal to, and it's -5, right? So then negative x over -1, this cancels out. We have x, -2 over -1, that's positive 2. This gives us -5, right? So now we can get it in terms of positive x. So we just subtract 2 on both sides, and we are left with x equals -5 minus 2, which is -7. Okay? There is another way you can do this one. You can go ahead and say -x minus 2 equals 5, and then add 2 to both sides, and then go ahead and say -x equals 7, and then divide both sides by -1, and you're left with x equals -7. This method is actually the more common method, but you can also do it this way as well. If you find this method to be too difficult, I would recommend doing it this way. So now what about two-step equations, right? Two-step equations are whenever you have a variable or a leading term in front of your x. So for example, 2x, let me rewrite it, 2x minus 10 equals 20, right? So, or let me say 10 instead. So you always, you get rid of the -10 by adding 10 on both sides. You then say 2x equals 20, and then you divide both sides by 2. And this leaves you with x equals 20 divided by 2, which is 10. Okay? You can do distributive property if you know how to do distributive property, or you can factor it if you know how to factor. That'll be in another video. I've done factoring before. I know exactly how to do factoring, so you can look at one of my other videos. I may do another video on factoring soon, so stay tuned for that. So, but for now, this is the way that, you would do it. What about distributive properties? So like 2 times x minus 5 equals 20. Or let's say -12, right? The way that you're going to do it is you're going to grab 2 and you're going to multiply it to x and -5. So this gives you 2x minus 10 equals -12. Okay? So, yeah, so basically, you do distributive, that is what distributive property is. You multiply, basically you're saying 2 times x minus 2 times 5 equals -12. This gives you 2x. In algebra, when you have 2 times x like this, we bring them together. This is 2x. Okay? With numbers, you just multiply the numbers. So then you add 10 on both sides. You're left with 2x equals negative 2. You divide both sides by 2. You're left with x equals negative 1. What if I have an equation where it gives me a fraction? So I'm going to say 1/3 x minus 1 equals 4. So this one looks a little bit trickier, right? But it's not as hard as we think it is. What you have to do, you still add 1 on both sides. You have 1 on both sides, you add 1 on both sides, right? And then you have 1/3 x equals 5. So how do we get rid of that fraction? You multiply by the reciprocal, or you multiply, well, yeah, you multiply by the reciprocal for the most part, but because this is just 1 here, it'll give us 1x, so you can multiply by 3. I'll do another example in a little while, or in a little bit, or maybe in the next one. In the next example, I'll do one where we don't have a 1 on top, but basically you cancel it out and you have x equals 15, right? Sorry guys, give me a second. Okay, so hopefully that looks better. Sorry guys, give me a second. Okay, so hopefully that looks better. I don't know because I'm not 100% sure, but I hope it looks better now. I'm not 100% sure though. So we have 1/3 x minus 1 equals 4, right? So then we get x equals 15. So what about if we had 13 halves x minus 6 fifths equals 1/5, right? This is a little bit trickier. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can add, or you can literally get the common denominator of this, or you can go ahead and do it where you do a normal linear equation. I'm going to do it both ways so that I can show you guys. So method 1, I'm going to say this is method 1, right? I'm going to say 13 halves x minus 6 over 5 equals 1 over 5. So then I'm going to say plus 6 over 5 plus 6 over 5. This will give me 13 halves x equals 7 over 5. Remember that 13 halves x is the same as 13x over 2. So for example, if I have a over b times c, this is ac over b. Okay, that's an important thing to know. It's like if I say 2/3 times 3, or sorry, 2/3 times 4. This is really 2 times 4 over 3. Because really this is 13 abs times x over 1 equals 7 over 5. So this is like 13 over 2. 13x over 2 equals 7 over 5. I wanted to clarify that really quickly because I know that for some people, for those of you who don't really know much of algebra, I really want to make sure I'm very clear on what I'm doing. So basically now we have 13x, so we can do something called cross multiplication. A over b equals c over d. If a over b equals c over d, then that means that a times d equals b times c. Okay, it's like the butterfly method. Some call it the butterfly method, others call it cross multiplication. Whatever you want to call it is fine. But it's that same method. So basically I'm going to say 13x times 5 equals 7 times 2. So this becomes how much is 13? So 13 times 5, that's 65, right? So we have 65x equals 14. So then we divide both sides by 65. And then, let's see. Because sometimes it simplifies. So 14 divided by 65. So that's basically what it is. So x equals 14 over 65. So this one was a little bit more tricky than the other ones. That is the first way that you can do it. The other way you can do it, so that's method 1, right? That is method 1, right? The other way you can do it is by getting the common denominator of the left side. So for example, 13, so we have 13x over 2 minus 6 over 5 equals 1 over 5. Sorry guys, give me a second. So this becomes, so we can do cross multiplication here. So basically a over b plus or minus c over d equals ad plus or minus bc all over bd. So this is what it's going to be. 13x times 5. We're going to do this, right? Minus, we're going to do 2 times 6 all over 2 times 5, okay? And this is going to equal 1/5. So now we can do the exact same thing we did over here. So 13x times 5 is 65x. So 65x minus 12 over 10 equals 1 over 5. This becomes 5 times 65x minus 12 equals 10, because you're doing 5 times 65x minus 12 equals 10 times 1, which is 10, right? I hope this is pretty clear. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down below in the comments at any point in this video. I'll be more than happy to explain. more thoroughly. So now we're going to do 5 times 65x minus 12. So 65 times 5, that's 32. So 325x. 5 times 12 is 60. So you're basically doing this. Distributive property equals 10, right? You add 60 to both sides, and you are left with 325x equals 70. You divide both sides by 325, and then you go ahead and do x equals 70 over 325, and you use your calculator or you simplify that, and you are left with x equals 14 over 65, right? So this is the other method that you can use. Depending on what method works best for you is the method that you can do. But those are two different ways in which you can do this problem. So what if I have, for example, negative x minus 1 equals x, right? How do I solve for that, right? So I can add x on both sides and have negative 1 equals 2x, and then I can divide both sides by 2, and I can get that x equals negative 1/2. Okay? Now, it gets very complicated once you get into distributive property on both sides. I'll show an example. So 2 times x minus 3 equals 3 times 2x minus 1. So you have to do, you have to do distributive property twice. Sorry guys, my tongue twisted. So you're gonna go ahead and do 2 times x minus 2 times 3 equals 3 times 2x minus 3 times 1. So basically it's gonna be 2x minus 2 times 3, which is 6, equals 3 times 2x, which is 6x, minus 3, right? So now we need to get x by itself, either by subtracting 6x on both sides or subtracting 2x on both sides. You should always do the variable first. So minus 2x here, right? So then you have negative 6 equals 4x minus 3. And then you add 3 to both sides, and you're left with negative 3 equals 4x. So then, lastly, you're going to divide both sides by 4, and you're left with x equals negative 3/4. Okay? Now, what about some really difficult linear equations? So I'm going to make one up. So 2 times x minus 4 minus 3 times x plus 1 minus 6 equals 2 times 3x minus 4 minus 2 plus 3 times x minus 7. Okay, so this one obviously is a huge step upward in difficulty, but I'm going to go ahead and go over this very slowly. So first and foremost, distributive property, right? You're going to do distributive property. 2x minus 8. And then minus 3x minus 3, because it's 3 times x, negative 3 times x, plus negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3. Minus 6 equals, it's going to be 6x. This is 6x minus 8. Minus 2 plus 3x minus 21. So now we have a bunch of numbers and a bunch of terms here, right? We're going to do something called combining like terms. We have a 2x and a negative 3x. So a 2x and a negative 3x. That's negative x. And then we have minus 8. And then minus 3 minus 6, negative 3 minus 6. That's negative 9, right? And this is equal to 6x. So again, we have 6x plus 3x. That should be 9x. Negative 8 minus 2. That should be negative 10. And then we have a minus 21 there. So now we have negative x. Negative 8 minus 9 is negative 17. And then 9x minus 10 minus 21, that's 9x minus 31. So as you can see, we've simplified it so much so to the point where we have an x on both sides. So now we have to eliminate one of the x's. So plus x on both sides, right? We have negative 17 equals 10x minus 31. We add 31 on both sides, so let's see, so add 31 on both sides. And then you do 31 minus 17. You have 14 equals 10x. You divide both sides by 10. You simplify 14 over 10, so 14 over 10 should be, because it's divisible by 2 on top and bottom, it should be 7 over 5. So x equals 7 over 5. Okay. That was a challenge problem, guys. But that is basically the idea behind linear equations, is that you have to know exactly how to, exactly when and how to do, like distributive property. I did not go over associative property, but associative property, I think, is oh, let's see. It's like A plus C equals C plus A. Or 2 plus 3 equals 3 plus 2. I think that's what associative property is. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I can't remember if this is either commutative or associative. But with that being said, guys, this is it for this video. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Please like, comment, and or subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.